guys, hi, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in November and trying to unpack the weirdness that was this month. I had just a weird reading month and I'm feeling out of sorts about it, so I thought I would discuss that with you along with this video. Not that I've planned any of it, so it's going to be quite off the cuff. If you're new, then know that I'm Shelly. I love to read. Reading is great. If you also enjoy listening to someone talk about her reading life, maybe subscribe. Please leave a comment. I love hearing from you. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. One incredible feature of this month is that I have been putting up weekly vlogs. I'm like all about making these vlogs. They're so much fun. They blend a lot of things that I love. So reading, cooking, a little bit of family life, a little bit of fashion, just my daily stuff. And I just really love making them. So if you are a vlog watcher, it would mean a lot to me for you to check out the vlogs and maybe see if they're for you. They go up on Tuesdays, typically Tuesday morning, because I'm so excited for them to be released into the world. So there's that. This month, in terms of reading, started off with a thriller. It was Thomas Harris's Red Dragon, which is the first published book in his Hannibal Lecter series. Thomas Harris went on to write a prequel to this series, but Red Dragon was our first in with this very famous character now. And the way the book is set up is that the FBI agent, sort of a high in the chain of command, Crawford, comes to a retired agent's house, to Will Graham, to try to get him to look at one last case, the case of the Tooth Fairy. Will Graham caught Hannibal Lecter, who in this world is a very sort of renowned and like oddly adored serial killer. Like there's so much interest in him, in his psychology, because he was so smart and so difficult to catch. And so for that reason, Will Graham sort of did the impossible, and there's no real reason as to why. There's like a lot of questions as to how Will Graham actually caught this very infamous serial killer, which was really interesting, an interesting component to the book. And in the book, we meet Hannibal because part of Will Graham's process is to ask Hannibal about, what he, like, it sort of takes one to know one in terms of serial killer to serial killer. And so Will Graham talks with Hannibal about how to catch the Tooth Fairy. Ultimately, though, it was a character study of the Tooth Fairy, who is eventually revealed. And it's not like the twist, it's not even the twist in the book. You get to know who the Tooth Fairy is and maybe why he's doing what he's doing, which is very specific and very rooted in his past. And you're getting all these different perspectives of putting together this particular person. And many of the characters, particularly Hannibal, Will Graham, and the Tooth Fairy, are incredibly layered and incredibly nuanced. And there was something just wonderfully tangible about the psychological part of this psychological thriller horror book. It was so good. And I was like eating it up with a spoon. I was loving it so much. So then I took a small break from that, like a palate cleanser, if you will, and I read this novella by Alan Bennett entitled The Uncommon Reader, which was so fantastic. It was about Queen Elizabeth II, who reads, she reads, she knows how to read, and sort of through these quirky events, but not out of the ordinary, she ends up picking up a book and then picking up another book and then falling in love with reading and becoming really in love with reading in this way where it's like extremely relatable for me. Like, she wants to talk to everybody about what she's reading. She's asking everybody what they're reading and what their opinion is on those books. And she finds herself very swept away by literature and would love to sort of cancel her engagements just to spend the afternoon reading. It was so good. And it was so incredibly quotable and well developed and was just a charming, charming read. So I think around this time, I'll actually continue with the reads, because then I went back to the Hannibal Lecter series, and I finished Silence of the Lambs, which was interesting because we don't have this retired cop, Will Graham, who has a lot of he has a very messy internal life and a lot of conflicting feelings. Instead, we were following Clarice Starling, and she is like a gung-ho, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed student at the academy to become an officer, hopefully for the FBI. And they are following this guy, this person, I forget his nickname, but I'm like, it's not Silence of the Lambs. Let me think. Buffalo Bill. That's what it was. It's Buffalo Bill. So that's just his nickname in the FBI, right? And we know that he is targeting women. We know that this killer has kidnaps his persons before he does whatever he does to them. And so it's set up quite well in that we meet this sort of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed detective. Someone goes missing. We know who Buffalo Bill is, and we're trying to save the kidnapped person before she is his next victim of, she's a victim of his kidnapping, but not of his death. So it's like a race against the clock, which didn't have quite the same feel as Red Dragon. This was very much like you knew that time was very much ticking down. And there was one particular scene that I was like, that was really good. That was really good. It was so well placed, and it was like how everything clicked into place. It was really, really good. But overall, I didn't love this one as much as I love the other ones. I didn't find Buffalo Bill as an intriguing or as a, I just didn't find him as a very interesting character. He was not very nuanced. I have to say that for actually most of, 2 out of 3 of the characters. So we have Crawford, the guy who's high up in the FBI, and then we have Clarice, and then we have Buffalo Bill. And in the last book, sort of Crawford, Will Graham, and Hannibal, and the Tooth Fairy were all extremely nuanced. And in this book, we only have 2 characters who were nuanced. We had one character that was nuanced. We had Crawford. And then the other characters, Clarice and Buffalo Bill, were sort of flat, in my opinion. It was still a really enjoyable read, but it wasn't it didn't leave me like, oh yay, that was so juicy and amazing, and I loved it so much. So it was interesting. And I think I figured out why. I think I know in my own soul, why I feel that way about this book in particular, that I just wanted more nuance within the internal life of the character. So, that's fine. So as some of you know, amid all this time with all this reading with serial killers and Queen Elizabeth II, I finished what did I finish? I finished The Man of My Dreams by Curtis Sittenfeld. So I've been on this Curtis Sittenfeld kick. I think I've read 7 of her books this year, which is crazy. Last year I had read 0, and now I'm at 7 of her works. And this is going to fall into one of her weaker books. And Priscilla from the Evening Reader is a Sittenfeld fan. And she left me a comment about the order in which I should read things, and I have not followed that. I need to go back to that comment and really look, because she has some good advice. Anyhow, Priscilla mentioned that The Man of My Dreams felt more like a debut novel than Prep did. And so I don't know. Prep by Sittenfeld is her debut work about a young woman going to an elite high school who doesn't really fit in, and she's very aware of like her social status, even though I don't think anyone around her really is judging her, making her feel bad. She is just so hyper aware of how she's coming off, or how she perceives herself as coming off, that she is just like a train wreck and a half, a little bit, like truly cringe moments. And so there was this real tangible brilliance to Prep about the inner life and the way that we see ourselves and the way that people perceive us and the way that we perceive others, and sort of like just having our priorities slightly out of whack, and how that can really be detrimental to our own self and the choices that we make. And there were just so many wonderfully cringe moments. It was so good. So Prep had this like genius in it that I was just like, it was infused with genius. The man of my dreams was doing something very similar. Someone that's also very hyper aware of like her own dating life and everyone else's dating lives, and what she wants out of a relationship, or what she thinks other people want for her, and what she wants for other people. And I mean, it was just like, it was all about sort of relationships. But it just didn't sing. Like, I just couldn't find myself getting invested, like truly invested in this book and in the struggle of the character. There were some really fascinating moments. There were some really, I don't know, there were some like well-drawn scenes, but ultimately it was just like very, very flat. And so it was interesting because Priscilla has said The Man of My Dreams feels like the debut that Prep wasn't, and Prep feels like more of like the sophomore or like the more well-developed novel. And I don't know. I mean, I have my own theories, but I don't know if it's true. But I wonder if, like, you know, you have your whole life to write your first novel. And I think it was like the New York Times reviewed Prep. There's like a whole article about Prep. And all of a sudden there's this pressure on Sittenfeld to write that second novel. And I wonder if she just had something in the works and she sort of just polished it up and finished it up and sort of put it out there, and somebody was willing to publish it because of her success with Prep, and it just wasn't very good. I don't know. I don't know how it works with the publishing world. So like, that's just my total imagination of what I think might have happened. But that's how it kind of felt. It just was like, it was just not great. And so what's interesting is that Sittenfeld now for me has truly become either a like mega hit or a miss author. Like, some of her books are so good and so well drawn. And I love seeing the development of her writing as I've continued to read more of her works. But sometimes, man, some of her books are just not good. And my battery died in the middle of that ramble. So I'm sorry, not sorry. It's probably time for me to go. I just didn't love it. And I don't know. So let me think. Oh, then my friend Fraser, who's just so great and fun. He was like, let's read Quicksilver together if you're feeling up for it, by Callie Hart, the Quicksilver, right? And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, let's do it. Like, I'm up for something sort of silly. We started it on the day that the sequel came out, Brimstone. So we get into this so it is a romanticy book. It is incredibly popular on other social media apps, I think. It is one of the romanticy books right now that is taking the cake. I mean, I'm interested in romanticy in sort of like a vague way, but you know, it was like, okay, I want to have a good time with Fraser, so we'll read this together. And it was interesting because you got into it, and I think this is what hooked me. Because I'm like, okay, I'll non-spoiler about how I feel. My feelings. This is not a spoiler. Like, I actually quite liked it. And I was like, why do I like this? I have read so many sort of popular fantasy books that I just can't get on with. Twilight was one of them. A Court of Thorns and Roses was another one. Mistborn was another one. I even read the 5th season, and I didn't love it in the way that other people love it. So, but I really enjoyed Quicksilver, and I was like, okay, so why is this one working for me, and all of these others just didn't seem to charm me? So, I mean, I think timing is part of it, you know. I was like maybe up for sort of like a silly read, but the thing is that it was silly, and it was silly in kind of like the best way. it was as if Callie Hart knew that this is going to be a silly, I don't, like we're just here to have a good time kind of vibe. And maybe like like we're all laughing at the same thing together. We're just being silly together. So you have this incredibly incredulous main character who, through a series of events, is swept into another realm, and there she is, safe from a more perilous upbringing. She is kind of trying to get back to her main homeland, but is very much enjoying, like, discovering and learning more about this new realm that she is, like, was sort of thrust into. And she has all these magical powers that she can now discover in this new realm. And there's, like, a very, very hot man who is, like, she's, like, loves to hate. She loves to hate, and he loves to hate her. And so that's kind of the setup of it all. And what was funny is that the way that the main character was portrayed, it was like she couldn't believe things were happening. And so thus it kind of was like she and I were on the same side, and we were like, oh my gosh, like that, how does that even work? That's so wild or silly or like wacky or whatever, right? And like, and so it just ended up being like you kind of bonded with her, because she was also like you, and like she and I were being incredulous together in a way. And then there's like sort of entering the scene is this guy from another realm, and he ends up being like a great comic relief. Anyways, all of the elements came together. Yes, there were like some really spicy, like there were 2 very spicy scenes. Like, okay, you know, okay. But it, you know, so that was like, that was neither here nor there. But like this story was actually not horrible. And it was like, because we're here to just have a silly time, there was like a lot that I very much enjoyed. Like I was just not taking it too seriously. I was not trying to make it so that the world was fitting. But Callie Hart was writing in a way where I didn't feel like she was taking it too seriously, and she wasn't trying to fit everything perfectly, and she was just like, I'm just trying to give you a good time that makes at least some sense, right? And in that way, it really succeeded, and it was fun. So then we end that, and, you know, Fraser's like, do you want to start Brimstone? And I'm like, sure, why not? So we started it, and I was like, okay, yeah, we ended on this, like, high moment, like, it's great. And we start, and in this one, so in the first book, we are only getting Karis, who is the main character, her perspective on everything. And then in the second book, we have her perspective and her, like, enemy person, like, the guy that she's interested in, we have his perspective as well. And very quickly, the storyline diverges, and her storyline ended up being something that I just simply didn't care about. And his storyline was really funny, because in his storyline is the comic relief character, Carrion Swift. He ended up being just so funny and like charming and silly. But it's like, here I am, where literally half the book, all of the chapters with that main female perspective, I just didn't like anymore. And also, I feel like Callie Hart got very serious about, like, there was less of that, we're in on the joke. We're in on, we're having a good time being silly and funny. And suddenly, it's like, we're not all dancing and just being goofy and laughing at ourselves. It was like somebody who's like, no, we got to get the choreography right. Everybody stand, go. Like, everybody, like, we're not doing it right. Like, it kind of had that feeling where she just like wanted, it was like, she got serious about it. And so then it was like, oh, well, this isn't really fun anymore. So yeah, that's like my best metaphor for it. So I ended up DNFing Brimstone at like exactly the 50% mark. I just was like, I'm not interested. I was like, calculating how many hours I would have to spend in order to finish it. That's a terrible sign for me. I was like, if I could just like get through this as fast as possible, this is gonna be great. Like, no. And then I was like, okay, if you're feeling this way, Shelly, you should just like cut it off just cut it off now and we'll be better for it. So then I'm also reading, oh my gosh, I have to like look it up. The book I'll probably finish today or tomorrow is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, which is so cute. I was originally reading this in between the scary moments of the Hannibal series, and then I've just like switched to just trying to finish the book because I feel like I've been reading it for a month, which I think I have. And it's not that the book is that long, but it's starting to feel long because I've not been paying attention to it and only sort of fitting it in between. So I'm like, just finish it, get it off your plate, and then like you'll feel better. So this is essentially, it's a queer fake dating story for someone who is trying to salvage his reputation. And the kid who's trying to salvage Luke, who's trying to salvage his reputation, is going out with Oliver, who's like a stuffy barrister. And the reputation salvager is like low self-esteem, like has a complicated family, and is funny and charming, and we're getting his perspective. And then Oliver has like got his life together, but is not without his flaws. And you see the fake dating, you see like slowly it starts to morph into something more. And it's so cute. It's so cute. And it really is it's so much more about like the banter and this, like the relationships and their friend groups than it is about like the spice, which I like this kind of romantic book more than I like when it's just about the spice. And then the final book is, I did start Hannibal, the third book in the Hannibal Lecter series, and it's good. It's set not here. I think it's set in Italy, which is so weird. The other books were set in the U.S., very U.S. centric, and we are now our main character that we're exploring, rather than it being the Tooth Fairy or Buffalo Bill. We're exploring Hannibal, who has been kind of an enigmatic and aloof character, though like very interesting in his own way, up until now. Now we're getting more of him, and I think that that's what's getting me like really excited about it. But I paused that for a day or two because I'm like, I just need to get rid of Boyfriend Material off my plate. I need to like get Boyfriend Material done so then I can just fully focus on Hannibal. And then I don't think I'll read the prequel. I think I'm good after that. And I don't really know where I'm going to go from here. I have some buddy reads that I'm setting up some buddy reads. We'll see how those end up shaping out. And yeah, that's it. So tell me, what have you read? I shared It's Your Turn. Would love to know, like, best book, worst book. Did you have any DNFs? I still think like Red Dragon, well, The Uncommon Reader was very, very good. And Red Dragon was also very, very good. But like they're very different. But those were like the two high points. So maybe, why is it weird? It's weird because I feel like I'm like in a slump. But I'm like not really, but I kind of am. I feel like I've just made no progress on my reading, which is just not true. It's just how I feel right now. I said I was going to unpack it, and then I got really into talking about books, which is probably a good thing. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm having a slow reading. I've had slow reading for the last 2 weeks is really how I feel. And that I'm not really finishing anything. And it doesn't help that I DNF'd a book because it feels like I didn't finish it, but I made the choice not to finish it, but it doesn't give me that like satisfaction that I checked it off my list. It's another book down, which I'm not like highly motivated by, but I do still feel like I like to finish things at a good clip. And I just feel like I'm just like at a snail's crawl right now. And I can't really tell you why. I'm obviously not spending as much time reading. But I don't know like where that time has gone or what's exactly happening. So I don't know, maybe maybe I've just had such like a really high couple of months where I just read some really amazing books. And then I'm just like in this slump of not like reading not great books for about 3 weeks. Or like reading good kind of books for like 3 weeks, because I think I finished the Alan Bennett book, The Uncommon Reader, like at least 2 weeks ago. So I just think I'm in this moment where I'm like, I don't know, I'm just in this in-between moment. So we'll see. I just need to make some good choices moving forward in the future. And yeah, otherwise things are going well. Yeah, anyways, I'm gonna go. Thank you for spending this time with me as always, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye.